You know, sometimes a single moment can change everything. For Jerry Cantrell, the guitarist and one of the creative voices of Alice in Chains, that moment hit him while he was just riding a city bus. What he saw was so disturbing, so raw, that it wouldn't just inspire a song, it would end up defining the sound of one of the most important bands of the 90s. This is a story of how a horrifying glimpse into the lives of child drug dealers birthed the grunge anthem We Die Young.
Before we get started, be sure to hit the bell notification icon and put all notifications on. I hear from a lot of my subscribers that they don't even get notifications when I post my videos. I would greatly appreciate if you guys did that.
Before Nirvana, before Pearl Jam, before the whole world turned its flannel-clad gaze to the Pacific Northwest, there was Alice in Chains. Formed in Seattle in 1987, they were just a different kind of animal. While their peers were digging into punk and alternative rock, Alice brought something heavier, something darker, a sound forged in heavy metal and steeped in a real sense of gloom. The band, made up of Cantrell, the thunderous drummer Sean Kinney, the steady groove of bassist Mike Starr, and of course the unforgettable haunting voice of Lane Staley. It was a perfect storm of talent. Their entire sound was built on those iconic vocal harmonies between Cantrell and Staley, a kind of dueling siren call of pain and aggression that just cut through the noise of the late 80s rock scene. By 1990, they now had to deal with Columbia Records and were about to unleash their debut record, Facelift, on a world that had no idea it was coming. But the story of their first single, the song that would be their brutal 2.5-minute mission statement, didn't start in a recording studio. It started on the streets of a city hiding a dark secret. In the late 80s, Seattle was a city of contradictions. To the rest of the world, it was being sold as one of America's most livable cities, a paradise of evergreen forests and mountain views, but if you scratch just beneath that shiny surface, a very different reality was taking hold. The city was groaning under the weight of its own growth. Traffic was a nightmare, and a feeling of decay was creeping into the downtown core. This was right before the tech boom would completely reshape the city. Old industries were dying out, and a grittier, rougher element was becoming more and more visible. And with that came a much more dangerous tide, the crack cocaine epidemic. It had torn through other American cities, and by the late 80s, it had a firm grip on the Pacific Northwest, in addition to, of course, heroin. Law enforcement knew that the street gangs were migrating north from Los Angeles, bringing with them a whole new level of violence. This wasn't some distant headline. It was playing out on the streets every day. A 1984 documentary called Streetwise had already shown the world the heartbreaking lives of runaway teens hustling to survive in Seattle, a huge contrast to the city's pristine public image. Poverty and inequality were on the rise, and with that came a grim acceptance of violence in certain neighborhoods. This was the Seattle Jerry Cantrell knew, not the postcard city from the magazines, but a place with a tense, anxious energy. A city on the edge, where the innocence of the youth could be swallowed whole by the shadows of the streets. Inspiration doesn't always strike like a bolt of lightning. Sometimes it's very mundane. Jerry was on a public bus heading to a rehearsal one day, and he'd recently had a fight with his roommate and bandmate Sean Kinney, and at the time he was crashing with their then manager Susan Silver, who also managed Soundgarden. It's a small detail, a petty squabble between friends that grounds the story in a reality that was about to be shattered. As the bus rumbled through the city, Jerry looked out the window, and that's when he saw them. Kids, not teenagers, but children. And these kids were working. They were standing on street corners, dealing drugs. The sight was just jarring, a snapshot of a world gone completely wrong. It was how casual it all looked, that chilling mix of childhood innocence and the cold, hard business of the drug trade that hit Jerry like a physical blow. In the liner notes for the band's Music Bank box set, Jerry later described it with stark simplicity, saying, "I saw all these 9, 10, 11-year-old kids with beepers dealing drugs. The sight of a 10-year-old kid with a beeper and a cell phone dealing drugs equaled We Die Young to me. It wasn't a metaphor or some abstract idea. It was a direct one-to-one equation." That image he saw of children whose lives were already on a fast track to ruin was crystallized into a 3-word phrase that was both the song's title and a terrifyingly blunt statement of fact. In that one moment, the entire soul of the song was born. It was an immediate gut-level reaction to a deep social sickness. As the bus kept going, the phrase "We Die Young" just echoed in Jerry's head. He knew he had to write about it. He got to rehearsal, the image still burning in his mind, and the dark, heavy riff that would anchor the song wasn't far behind. A single disturbing bus ride had provided the spark, and now the fire was about to be unleashed. Turning that raw observation into a song, We Die Young is not subtle. It's a lyrical sledgehammer, as blunt as the reality that inspired it. The song is short, sharp, and packed with a sense of dread. The opening lines immediately create a feeling of inescapable danger. What is scary? It's meant to be ambiguous. It could be the gang graffiti marking the territory on a wall. It could be a rival gang member, the personification of street violence. Or it could be death itself, waiting patiently for its next victim. The song doesn't offer advice, only a warning. The line, "Watch the blood float in the muddy sewer," is a pretty graphic, ugly, and final image of street violence. Lane Staley himself confirmed the song was a direct commentary on this, saying in an interview it was about, and I quote, "incidents where kids were getting shot and getting tennis shoes ripped off their dead bodies." The lyrics reflect a world where something as simple as a pair of shoes could get you killed.
But it's the line, "Take another hit and bury your brother," that's perhaps the most chilling.
In just 7 words, it connects the cycle of drug abuse directly to the cycle of loss as well as death. It's a world where people have just accepted their grim fate because of their circumstances. This theme of grim acceptance, instead of hope or rebellion, became the hallmark of Alice in Chains' music. We Die Young was one of the few songs in the band's catalog that looked outward at the world around them rather than in the internal demons that would later fuel albums like Dirt or Tripod. Chorus, a simple repeated chant. It's a fatalistic mantra. It's a declaration that in a world running faster towards the thrill or escape only speeds up the inevitable journey to an early grave. If the lyrics were a punch to the gut, the music was the force that drove it home. The song is a monolith of sound, a perfect fusion of heavy metal and the dark, sludgy groove that would help define grunge. It all starts with Jerry Cantrell's riff. It's not just actually a riff, it's a declaration of war, heavy, menacing, and built on a drop-D tuning that producer Dave Jordan had encouraged. You can't talk about the heavy, dark sound of early Alice in Chains without mentioning the influence of their Seattle predecessors, Soundgarden. Soundgarden was already an established force. Jerry had cited them as one of his favorite bands, and managed by the same powerhouse Susan Silver, the bands were deeply connected. In fact, Jerry was briefly living with Susan Silver and her then boyfriend, Soundgarden's Chris Cornell, around the time he wrote the song. That proximity to Soundgarden's sludgy metal-infused power and their use of alternate tunings undoubtedly bled into Alice in Chains' DNA, helping them forge their own brand of unique darkness. Not that Alice was embraced by their peers early on, because they weren't. Soundgarden guitarist Kim Thayil recalled Alice's early demos, stating they, and I quote, "owed a little bit more to Poison," adding, "Jerry asked me how to play songs like Beyond the Wheel from Soundgarden's 1988 debut, Ultra Mega OK. I said, there's this thing called drop-D tuning." A short time later, they recorded a demo of their songs you hear on Facelift, and they had that drop-D tuning on them. The rhythm section of Mike Starr on bass and Sean Kinney on drums provides this powerful driving momentum.
What's incredible is that Kinney played on the entire Facelift album with a broken hand. He had broken it before recording, and the band even tried rehearsing with Mother Love Bone drummer Greg Gilmore. But Kinney wasn't having it. He cut off his cast in the studio, kept a bucket of ice by his drum kit, and powered through the sessions, pounding out a frantic primal beat that perfectly matched the song's urgency. Starr's bass added a thick, heavy bottom end, and together they sound like a machine hurling towards a cliff.
And then there's Lane Staley. His vocal performance is nothing short of electrifying, a raw, urgent, and delivered with so much conviction that you can feel every word. He doesn't just sing the lyrics, he inhibits them. We Die Young is the most direct, aggressive, and metal-influenced track on Facelift. While other songs would explore more melody and complex emotion, this one's different. It was short, punchy, and sharp, designed for maximum impact. It was the perfect mission statement telling the world exactly who Alice in Chains was from the very first note.
With the song captured, it was now time to introduce it to the world. Between December of '89 and April of 1990, Alice in Chains worked with producer David Jordan to record Facelift. Jordan was hot off the success of Jane's Addiction's Nothing Shocking, and he had been given Alice's demo by Nick Terzo the guy who actually signed the band to Columbia Records. Jordan thought Alice were a total mess. The music was eclectic, it was all over the place, and they were actually struggling to find somebody who wanted to work with them. Jordan told Louder Sound, I forgot which song it was, but it was the closest to the Alice in Chains we know, with drop D tuning. I met with the band and told them what I thought, that their songs were a mess. But I said to Jerry Cantrell that I liked what he was doing. It was like if Metallica had sped Tony Iommi's riffs up, then brought them back down again. In July of 1990, a month before the album was dropped, Columbia Records issued We Die Young as a promotional EP. It was the first official studio release from the band, a small taste of the darkness that was to come. The EP was sent to rock radio stations to build buzz, and due to its limited release, it quickly became a prized collector's item for fans. We Die Young ended up being the first single issued from the album. Then on August 21st, 1990, Facelift was released with We Die Young as its explosive opening track. Kicking off their debut album, this was a bold, definitive statement. It immediately separated them from the lingering hair metal scene and even from some of their Seattle peers. The album began with a sonic gut punch that set a dark, heavy tone for everything that followed. Now, We Die Young wasn't the song that immediately blew them up on the charts. That honor went to Man in the Box, which got heavy rotation on MTV. But We Die Young did exactly what it needed to do. It put Alice in Chains on the map as a formidable, uncompromising force in rock. It was their calling card, announcing their arrival with all the subtlety of a brick through a window. The legacy of We Die Young isn't about chart positions. Its real importance is as the foundational stone for everything Alice in Chains would become. It was a statement of intent, a raw expression of their worldview. It drew a line in the sand, separating them from the excess of the 80s and heralding a heavier, more honest kind of rock and roll. The themes of decay, mortality, and the grim realities of life, first laid out in We Die Young, became central to their music. While later songs would turn inward to explore personal demons, this track proved they could be just as unflinching when looking at the world around them. But in a haunting turn of events, the song's title became a dark prophecy for Alice in Chains itself. The grim declaration, We Die Young, took on a devastating new meaning years later. In April of 2002, after a long and public battle with drug addiction, vocalist Lane Staley was found dead from an overdose of heroin and cocaine. He was only 34. The song's warning about a life lived too fast, leading to an early grave, became tragically real. Staley's passing cemented the song not just as an anthem, but as an epitaph. The tragedy was compounded almost 9 years later when original bassist Mike Starr also died from a prescription drug overdose in March of 2011 at the age of 44. The very men who gave voice and rhythm to this fatalistic anthem ultimately succumbed to the same cycles of addiction it described. For fans hearing the song now, it's a bittersweet experience, forever colored by real-world losses that followed. Musically, it was the blueprint. The combination of Cantrell's sludgy riffs and Staley's powerhouse vocals created a sound that was uniquely theirs. In an interview, Jerry himself called it a mission statement song, explaining that if you start with something that powerful, you can go anywhere you want after. It gave the band the freedom to explore different sounds because they had already established their heavy credentials with that opening blast. Today, We Die Young is still a fan favorite and a staple of their catalog. It's a time capsule of a specific moment in Seattle's history, but more than that, it's a testament to the power of observation. It's a reminder that great art often comes from seeing the world with open eyes and having the guts to report back on what you find, no matter how disturbing it is. The next time you hear that iconic snarling riff kick in, remember the bus ride, remember the kids on the corner, and remember that you're listening to the sound of a band and an era being born. What's your memory of hearing the song for the first time? It's amazing how a fleeting moment seen through a bus window became a seed from which the entire dark and majestic forest of Alice in Chains' music would grow. That brings us to the end of today's video, guys. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you again, Rock and Roll True Stories. Take care.